I'd like to introduce Aulo Gelli from the International Food Policy Research Institute.
I'll talk about a cluster randomized control trial set in Malawi. And the idea here was to use preschools as a platform to scale up an agriculture nutrition intervention. Many of the results that Marco presented actually come from the trial, and they are contributions from studies that are ongoing. I present study findings themselves, but also the findings of a sustainability survey that took place 1 year after the intervention has ended, to pick up on points that Stella has just made, looking at sustainability of what we found. Imagine you get free childcare, 3 hours a day, on one condition, that maybe once or twice a month you prepare a meal for the 19 other kids that are attending this preschool alongside yours. So, it's tricky, preparing a meal for 20 kids is challenging. So the whole idea here, though, was that it was an opportunity for you not only to learn about how to prepare meals, but also put it in practice, and put it in practice regularly, right? And, you build on peer pressure as well, because, you have your neighbors cooking for your kids, so you don't want the kids coming back saying, my neighbor's food is much better than yours, mommy. This kind of pressure sort of, I think, worked quite well as well. But the whole idea was essentially to provide training on how to prepare nutritious foods by nudging, by just giving additional tweaks to what people were doing already. So in Malawi, people love porridge, but it's porridge that's maize-based. So what we introduced was essentially findings from a pilot that Save the Children was running, where they actually mixed porridges with groundnuts, with leafy green vegetables, or other nutritious foods, to make something that was palatable, that the kids knew and they would eat, but it was also highly nutritious. So there's a lot of information around how to do that, so provide recipes and information on improving knowledge about nutritious foods, but also information on how to produce these nutritious foods. So there's a lot of emphasis on baskets of foods. So not an individual food, but diversifying food production, diversifying diets. And the whole idea was that these preschool meals were really a vehicle to change what people were doing at home. So we then designed a cluster randomized trial, 2 groups, intervention that included this ag nutrition package compared to a control that included the basic package that the government of Malawi was scaling up across the country. That included basic training on how to look after kids, how to provide good nutrition and health, but a general package without a specific emphasis on agriculture and nutrition. 3 things, I think, came out that were really quite striking. So the first point was really that these platforms, these preschool platforms, worked incredibly well in Malawi. So after 1 year of intervention, we picked up effects that benefited the preschoolers, so the children who were receiving those meals. Their diets improved considerably, and those were the main points I was supposed to talk about. So we used dietary intake, using 24-hour recall, and nutrient intakes really were much improved in the treatment group. If you use the probability or adequacy approach to estimate effect size, we had a 5-point increase in terms of the mean probability or adequacy. So it's basically looking across 11 different nutrients and basically comparing the distribution of intake across these different nutrients and comparing it to an estimated average requirement, which is sort of a basic reference point. So that increased by about 5 percentage points. That was driven mostly by increases in vitamin A, vitamin C, riboflavin, zinc. That all increased by between 9 and 16 percentage points. The other interesting part that started to really make us wonder was that the diets of the younger siblings of the preschoolers also improved. So these were kids who were not going to the preschool, but were benefiting from the parents, essentially learning how to improve their meals at home. Their diets improved, the dietary diversity increased by about 0.5 points, and the prevalence of minimum diet, basically the number of children who had 4 groups or more increased as well. And then we were really surprised because we actually saw effects on growth. So these younger siblings who ate better actually grew better over that 12-month period. And the effect sizes were really pretty staggering, about 0.4 standard deviations in terms of height for age. And that led to a reduction of about 15 percentage points in the prevalence of stunting, which in Malawi is quite high. About 37% of kids under 5 are stunted. Then we even were more surprised. We saw, when we looked at household level effects, and household food production was more diverse. And it was driven by production of these nutritious foods. So the platform idea really started to really gel. So we were really getting lots of different beneficiaries for this type of intervention. After a year, we went back and did a cost analysis. And this package costed about $100 full economic costs, okay? But of those $100, $60 were paid by the program. So those are financial costs. And $40 were actually costs that the community contributed, either in time or their food. So think about it. So you want to scale it up. And that gives you a cost per beneficiary. So cost per child is $100. But if you look at the platform idea and you include all the other beneficiaries that are benefiting from the program, your cost per beneficiary goes down to about $15 to $20. Health economists tell me that that's an okay thing to do. The third point was really about sustainability, picking up on what Stella was saying. So we went back after a year and we said, look, there's something really quite amazing that's going on. Are any of these effects sustained? And, we were positively surprised. Some of these effects were sustained. So this is 1 year after the intervention stopped. Production of these nutritious foods had continued, particularly for fruits that take a bit of a while to harvest, I guess. But the benefits for the younger siblings that were growing better actually showed themselves in terms of higher child development scores. This is across 3 out of 4 domains that we were measuring: gross motor, fine motor, language, and socio-emotional. I think socio-emotional domain was the only domain where we didn't see an increase. But we also saw higher scores in the aggregate child development score, really telling us that there was a signal, there was an improvement for these younger siblings as well. The last point I wanted to talk about was a bit on why this intervention worked so well. And I think we had incredible buy-in from the communities, and starting from the government, that is now essentially scaling up this intervention across 14 districts in Malawi based on the trial findings. But there was buy-in in the community. And essentially the community had been running these centers for a while. And as part of the formative research that we undertook to take this trial, we actually spoke to some of the chiefs, and one of the chiefs said something pretty remarkable. He said, these centers make my life as a chief a lot easier. And I was really surprised. I said, how can a preschool make your life as a chief easier? Well, they bring the whole community together around an idea that they all believe in. So, the whole idea around child development was something that really every parent and every member of the community thought was a good investment. And that sort of enabled the chief to essentially work in a more harmonious environment. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.